Are Kristi Noem's days as Homeland Security Secretary numbered? Well, both Democrats and Republicans are calling for her immediate dismissal over the chaotic operations in Minneapolis, particularly her immediate response to the deaths of 2 American citizens who were shot and killed by federal agents. Now, all of this is coming as President Trump held his 10th public cabinet meeting since he was reelected. And normally, it's a chance for the cabinet to shower Trump with praise, to tout their successes, and to answer questions from the press. But this time, things were very different.
Let's get into this panel discussion because it exposes a familiar pattern that keeps repeating in American politics. Once again, viewers are being asked to accept a storyline that falls apart the moment you slow it down and look at the facts. Minnesota did not request a massive federal presence. The state didn't deploy immigration agents, and it didn't initiate the enforcement surge now being discussed. That decision came from Washington. Yet the blame is carefully redirected, as if local officials somehow engineered the outcome themselves. That misdirection is doing all the work here. What's striking is what isn't happening. If the stated concern were truly about fraud or accountability, resources would be aimed at investigations, audits, or financial oversight. Instead, enforcement power is concentrated in a way that produces spectacle rather than solutions. That contrast makes it difficult to take the stated justification at face value. At the same time, we're hearing accusations framed in the most extreme moral terms, claims that suggest indifference to violence or tragedy, delivered casually and without evidence. Those statements aren't meant to inform, they're meant to provoke outrage and shift attention. And when they're followed by smiles, applause, or performative confidence, it becomes clear this is about narrative control, not truth. This is why so many voters feel confused and frustrated. They're being asked to ignore inconsistencies, excuse behavior they'd condemn elsewhere, and accept claims that collapse under even minimal scrutiny. That isn't political debate. It's storytelling designed to trigger emotion, loyalty, and division. And that's the real issue on display in this segment.
So with that, we are going to ask a couple of people to say a few words. And we're not going to go through the whole table because the last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours. And some people said he closed his eyes. Look, it got pretty boring. In all fairness, I love these people. But there's a lot of people. It was a little bit on the boring side.
Seems reasonable, but only a few cabinet secretaries did end up speaking. But get this, notably, Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, was not called on once. And Minneapolis and the ICE operations were not mentioned by Trump aide Stephen Miller, who also wasn't there. Now, while he doesn't always attend these cabinet meetings, Miller's absence is noteworthy, given his recent acknowledgement of a possible mistake when it comes to the immigration crackdown in Minneapolis. Trump also uncharacteristically took no questions. We know that that does not happen all that often. Is the president dodging here, Scott?
Yeah, it's quite rare for him to miss a chance to take questions, although I do think it's wise when you have a cabinet meeting or a public event to focus on the people who are going to talk about the things that you want to focus on today. So as a messaging strategy, that's a good.
When things are not going well, you don't want to talk to them.
I think on the Miller piece, look, my view is he is the most, one of the most, if not the most influential policy advisor in the White House. It's not at all surprising. I know we have some reporting about his conducting this daily call. That's not surprising at all because he is coming up with the president's policies. He wants to make sure they're enacted throughout the whole of government. He has the president's ear. And look, I've read some things today about he's the one who's the mastermind of all that. That's true on the policy side, but the mastermind of being tough on immigration is Donald Trump. That's true. That was the impetus of his first campaign and has been all the way through.
That is true, but I do think that this Stephen Miller pushing for aggressive tactics, pushing for quotas, that is not being talked about a whole lot. And he is responsible for how, not just what they're doing, how they're doing it, as we were discussing earlier.
It may be that President Trump wanted to avoid that topic, but clearly Tim Walz and the Democrats would love to focus on nothing but that topic because it's keeping the focus off the enormous amount of fraud in Minneapolis.
Whose fault is
Where
that?
whose fault
Yeah,
is the
exactly.
fraud?
Wait a second. Wait, no,
You don't think it's Tim Walz's
Wait,
fault?
but
All of
Betsy,
this
whose
money being
whose fault is it that
Right.
the Trump
Blame ICE.
administration decided to send 3,000 ICE agents into Minneapolis to distract from the fraud investigations that they wanted to bring more attention to? Does that make any sense to you?
No, I'm telling you that Tim Walz would like this conflict to go on
this actually has
forever
taken
to
the
take the
heat-
heat off him
this-
and his
Well,
administration for
Stephen Miller
allowing
is
that
a
fraud.
genius because he took the heat off of Tim Walz at just the right moment
Yeah.
and put the heat on
If
him.
there's massive fraud in
Yeah, exactly.
Minnesota
If-
or
Not if. There's been a lot of indictments.
Let me just finish.
Please.
Then
86
if there
so
is
far.
fraud, if there is fraud in Minneapolis or Minnesota, good. Go get it. Get all of it. Arrest everyone. Recover every dollar. But you know who does that? The anti-fraud parts of the FBI. ICE. CBP has nothing to do with it.
I didn't say they had anything to do with it, but Walz
also
is enjoying
separately-
this conflict on the streets because no one's
let-
talking
let-
about
the
governor is
his
enjoying having
culpability.
two citizens
I
of
mean,
Minnesota die?
we know for
wait,
sure that's
I have
not.
to, I have to say, I have to say,
Yes.
he said today that he thought maybe this was like the next Fort Sumter. And when
Walz?
Governor
Walz
Walz.
said that, and previously he had referenced the Battle of Gettysburg. And so when I hear that kind of language
the
coming
crime.
out of a governor, this sort of fantasizing about an American Civil War, first of all, I don't think he stopped to consider who that makes him in this entire endeavor.
A
Jefferson
Confederate.
Davis, spoiler alert. And number two, if you wanted more calm, if you wanted a little bit more cooperation, if you wanted to ratchet things down, you would not be referencing the first shots of the Civil War and
Diablo.
maybe thinking that we're in the middle of another one. You agree or disagree?
We don't want to get into a debate about political rhetoric, I don't think, because there's too much.
Do you like the Fort Sumter language?
I don't like it, but I don't like a lot of things that I hear in our political atmosphere. But I just constantly am baffled by when it is directed at conservatives, they suddenly want to clutch their little pearls. And then when they constantly egg and ramp up the...
So you do like it?
No, I don't like it at all. But what I'm saying is...
So are you clutching
No,
your
what
own
I'm saying
pearls?
is call it on both sides, which I'll never do. See, you only want to...
You said
only
it's
want to
pearl
react.
clutching, but then-
Yeah,
but then-
because
but
like
then
you
you
want
also
to
said
pearl
you don't
clutch
like
on
it.
that side, but when your side
I
doesn't...
don't wear pearls.
You don't want
Are you
to...
clutching your own? Are you clutching
I
your
will
own
clutch
pearls?
this. I will clutch this necklace.
Can I give a concrete
And say
example
that.
to her point? President Trump sent out a Truth Social post saying
Oh, we don't even want to get into that.
Minneapolis was going to face retribution. What does that even mean?
Exactly.
Is that appropriate or not appropriate for the president that
It's
there's going to be
coward.
retribution carried out against his own citizens?
My advice to the president and to Governor Walz and to Jacob Fry and to every single person is ratchet it down, stop referencing the U.S. Civil War, stop calling people Nazis, listen to Tom Homan,
Stop talking about retribution.
and
Say it,
just
Scott.
solve
Are you gonna
solve
say
the
it?
Stop
issue.
saying it's Obama
And just
and the
solve the
CIA
issue
and
of
Italians that are the
enforcing federal
Stop
law.
talking about retribution. You can add that one.
Yeah.
Fine, I just said I would
right.
advise them all
Let
to
me-
stop
so-
to ratchet
This
down.
is
That's a
where we
perfectly
started.
So-
that there-
He's
You had one really violent day, like a guy like Mike Kelly, put him in charge. Congressman Kelly, put him in charge for one day. One rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. End immediately. You know?
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
There's a constitutional issue here. The state of Minnesota, including its governor, seem to be suggesting that they don't have to abide by federal law, that they're going to have a civil war. Am I correct?
Let me just
That's
make
what the rhetoric
one
suggests.
note on the Kristi Noem front. The New York Post editorial board says it may seem unfair. It may mean telling a committed loyalist to walk the plank, but it is necessary. The White House needs to rapidly turn the corner on Minneapolis, and obviously efforts to just change the subject will not reassure nervous swing voters. To move on, the president should axe someone, get smart enforcement moving forward, and then go get to selling his big
And this is the New York
successes.
Post. I
The
just
New
wanna
York
make sure. The New York
Post.
Post. Just wanna make sure.
The New York
Post
Post.
said
They
it's true. I
say that
disagree
Trump
with them.
needs to say you're fired to somebody, and it very much seems like a lot of people would like that person to be Kristi Noem.
Maybe Gregory Bovino, who was
Or
in
Gregory,
charge
I mean,
in
there's some options.
Minneapolis,
let me
but
drill
I
There's
don't
down
some
think
options
it's
on the
fair.
menu. Yeah.
It's more than just we need a sacrificial lamb here. It's that Kristi Noem destroyed her own credibility and DHS's credibility by coming out within hours of this shooting with outright, provably false
Lies.
claims that Alex Preddy
why did-
brandished his
but why did
firearm,
she
that he
do
was
it, though?
a would-be assassin.
Who told her to do it?
Right. Somebody ordered
Somebody
the code
told her to
red.
do it.
It wasn't
She
something
did,
to just
she
do
did
it.
say that she said to Axios that she was taking direction from the White House, from Stephen Miller. So
Hey.
there's a lot of
Well, what
finger
do you know?
pointing.
From President Miller? Like, who was
The one who's
Lots
the
of
most
finger pointing.
Can I just point out one more
policy
person?
go ahead.
One more person who did not
Last
speak
point.
today. Quick trivia question: who's the Attorney General of the United States?
Oh, that's a
Where
good
the
one.
hell has she been?
That's a good
She
one.
was in Minneapolis this week, Ellie, and they arrested 16 people for, the over-the-line activities. Supposed
Yeah.
In a
protesters
week?
who didn't
So
cross the
she did get a shout out today, but
she wasn't allowed
there's
to
a
open her
lot of
mouth.
reporting about the turmoil from CNN has some reporting that there is turmoil in Minneapolis in the U.S. Attorney's ranks, where many people are upset, some are considering resigning. So there's a lot going on in this administration and a lot of pushback coming from inside and outside. But next for us, President Trump.
What stands out
Listen.
next is not strength, but avoidance. Instead of addressing the source of the escalation directly, the conversation gets rerouted, blame redirected, responsibility diluted. There's a noticeable reluctance to simply say that leadership rhetoric matters or that it should be tempered when tensions are already high. That silence speaks louder than any argument being made. This is where the image management kicks in. There's a constant performance of toughness, morality, and certainty, repeated so often it starts to feel compensatory. When values are invoked loudly and repeatedly, it's often less about conviction and more about insulation, creating distance between public identity and the real-world
In our
consequences
country.
of what's being defended. And this doesn't hinge on one individual. Personalities come and go, but the underlying posture remains. What we're seeing is a worldview that rewards escalation, excuses excess, and frames accountability as persecution. It resonates not because it solves problems, but because it channels frustration toward convenient targets. That's why contradictions are brushed aside. Hypocrisy becomes a feature, not a flaw. Arguments aren't evaluated for consistency. They're measured by whether they advance the narrative. Even obvious double standards are waved off as long as they serve the broader team interest. The only real counter to that dynamic isn't outrage, it's participation. Turning out voters, engaging the persuadable middle, and refusing to normalize incoherence as strength. History shows that movements built on grievance eventually collapse under their own weight. The noise feels dominant now, but it isn't permanent. That's where I'll leave it. Drop your thoughts below. Hit like if this breakdown helped. Subscribe if you want more, and I'll see you in the next one.